Evening, folks. Andy here. It's the evening of Friday, May 29th. It's around 10 o'clock. I felt it was as a need to make a post because of what I'm seeing happening right now in the news across the country, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, and Minneapolis. People are out protesting in numbers. And if you look at the crowds, you realize that the crowds, it's not just black folks. You have white folks out there also protesting along with them because it's clear the kinds of injustice we've been seeing for many years needs to be addressed. And as you all recall, this was basically started based on what happened to Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which was basically shown across the country. The complete absence of a sense of humanity that was displayed by the police force in terms of how they treated him. But what we're seeing is a lot of pent up anger. Anger because the reality is that this is not just a single incident. It's been happening for many years. And we still need to find a proper solution to address police abuse of power when it comes to dealing with people in minority communities. It's not just a black issue, it's a brown issue. And quite often it's an issue that goes across economic lines. Depending on where you are in the economic strata, you will probably experience the same kind of situation. Although predominantly we're experiencing it in the brown communities. We're experiencing it particularly with the murder and killing of black men by police officers, which must stop. And so we have to find ways to change the culture of policing and the culture of our communities. The fact that we think that this is something that is based within our culture as a whole and needs to be addressed. And in Gwinnett County, we need to also be concerned about this because what you're seeing in many cases with the rioting and the looting is pent up anger, primarily from people who have not benefited from what's been happening and the opportunities that are available in this country. And this is how they're lashing out. And if you recognize that the poverty level in Gwinnett County's rate has been rising consistently over the last several years. About 10 years ago, the poverty level was at 3%. Right now, we are around 12% poverty. And that is not sustainable. If we continue to grow at that rate, we're going to see the same kind of situations happening in the county that we're seeing across the country. And it just takes one flashpoint. And so we have to make sure we take care of our communities and address the situation of poverty. And those are some of the things that I am focusing on my platform in terms of lifting up those who are not experiencing the opportunities that are available in this country. We're talking about a low, before coronavirus came out, we're talking about a low rate of unemployment. But unfortunately, that low rate of unemployment is not translating to the communities as a whole because we're not seeing livable wages being offered and opportunities being offered to those at the lower strata of our economic level. And that's one of the main problems we have to find a way to solve. We need to solve it quickly and produce solutions and ideas to be able to address this situation in our communities before it gets out of hand. And so this is a situation we have to think of on the county level as a whole, and that's what I'm bringing. Gwinnett County is the most diverse county in the South. And as a diverse community, we have to find ways to come together to address these systematic issues. And they are systematic. They've been around for generations, and we cannot let them persist. And so those are some of the things that I'm going to be focusing on as your next Gwinnett County Commission Chair. We cannot brush these situations under the rug. We need to address it head on, which means as the administration, we need to be doing outreach in the community and recognizing that we need to find solutions, recognizing and making sure from the top that people recognize and understand that it matters to us. And it starts with leadership. It starts with the messaging that they're going to get from the top as County Commission Chair. That's what I'm going to be messaging. These types of actions need to stop. And we also need to focus on those who are at the lowest level of our economic strata to make sure we build them up so that we don't have to see the kind of frustration we're seeing now displayed across the country. We also have to deal with policing to make sure they recognize that we are in this together and our police force is there to provide support, not to be an invasion force, not to be a force to be a boot on the neck as we've seen, but in essence to protect and serve. And that is something we need to make very clear to our constituents and make clear to our police officers as well. And it all comes back to training, but it also involves outreach. So just want to reach out and let folks know that there are solutions to what we're seeing happening right now. But what we're seeing is a powder keg. It's in essence pent up anger, pent up distress, pent up despair, and that's a social issue we have to address. And we're seeing it across the country, and we're going to see it here in Gwinnett County unless we start to focus on addressing those issues. Quite often these things are set aside because it's not to the forefront until, as we're seeing right now, it just erupts. And we need to make sure we're putting things in place right now to make sure our communities are stable and opportunities are provided so that when things do happen, we can deal with it based on the fact that we are a community that cares. We're a community that has focused on this issue before, and as long as our constituents understand that we, as governing body, and also from the head of the government through the representation of the county commission chair, recognize that we are there for the community and we're going to do what's in the best interest of Gwinnett County as a whole, which is going to involve taking care of those who are most in need. So hopefully you all have a blessed and safe evening and weekend. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just hoping and praying that things settle down. We find some normalcy, not just because of coronavirus, but because of what's happening right now throughout the country with the riots and the looting. Hopefully people will come to their senses and start to calm down so we can have a dialogue, and hopefully we'll see some real change going forward. Okay? Andy Morgan, running for Gwinnett County Commission Chair. I'm asking for your vote so we can make positive change and solutions to Gwinnett County going forward. Have a good night.